Blake, what's your favorite Halloween costume of all time?
This joke is as old as Halloween is now.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who no longer knows enough about pop culture references to understand what the kids are dressed as these years, and I'm here with my co-host who is still wearing his costume and thinking that Halloween jokes are still funny. 2 weeks later, Toby Walters.
I mean, when you dress up like what's that? People Magazine does. The
you don't know
Man
it.
Alive.
You don't know it either now.
No,
who was the sexiest man alive recently?
I forget. I
submitted you.
I have David Beckham on the mind just because I watched the documentary recently. Did you watch that?
I didn't. I don't believe in soccer.
I mean, he's so good looking. It's like, why even debate it? Like,
did you watch it with your wife?
I did.
Well, you shouldn't have.
Well, we both admit like he's really good looking. Also, we both think his wife is beautiful. So it's like, I just applaud when just beautiful people get together and just get married and then have a long marriage. I'm just like, this is awesome.
It is nice to see something work for once.
I'm trying to think the last time I put on a costume. And so we're recording on Halloween. And then you made the point of, nobody's going to listen to this for a couple more weeks when Halloween is in the background.
I'm going to hold it now. I'm going to hold it to December.
But I own Church Gear, so I get to do what I want. So we're going to talk about Halloween for a minute.
Legitimately, Toby loves to say, I want rules and process at Church Gear, just as long as they don't apply to me. And he's not saying that to be funny.
No, because I'm terrible at following them. But I know in order to have a successful organization, we need rules and processes. Blake, one person came to Church Gear in a costume today.
Oh my gosh.
Ryan.
Are we going to burn him down today?
Totally. So one of our guys, Ryan, came in a costume, but literally nobody knew it was a costume for quite a while.
He was dressed as a dad? Like he was dressed as like a 90s sitcom dad?
Yeah.
But that outfit was, long blue shorts, high socks, a tucked in polo with a belt.
And a fanny pack. The funny thing is, none of us were that surprised to see him wearing it that we thought it was a costume.
I didn't know it was a costume.
Did you have a favorite costume like when you were a kid?
Toby, we can't talk about the things that get us canceled on the Church Gears podcast. I don't know. I thought all the Power Rangers were super dope. Like anytime you could get a onesie outfit that covered your whole body, you were like, I have become this character. Or those Scream masks. Oh my gosh, those were very popular when I was a kid, where you could press some button and blood would come on its face. It had some kind of filter.
Yeah. I usually, when I was really young, I would always dress up as an army man. I love to play army and play spies. My dad was in Vietnam, and so he had legit army clothes from Vietnam. And so we had as a kid
ever fight battle.
He was military police, and he didn't see any actual fighting.
Cannot imagine Jim doing that.
So I was all in on the army thing. And so in 5th grade, I get all in my army gear, and I even do the camouflage face paint and everything. And I mean, times were different. This was in the 80s. So I could take a toy gun to school. I know that that's totally not the situation today, but times were different back then. So I was all decked out in my military garb. And so I show up to school, and Blake, I was the only one.
No.
They had apparently put out an announcement saying, we're not having kids dress up for Halloween this year, so don't wear your costume.
Is this the origin story of your endless, unexplainable confidence? That day you realized it doesn't matter, and it never did again.
I don't know that I realized it that day, but they legitimately asked, my teacher asked, do you want to call your parents and, run back home and change out of your costume? And I'm like, why would I want to do that?
This is amazing. What grade was this?
I think it was 5th grade.
Yep, that's the origin.
I had no problem being the center of attention, the only one standing out just wearing a costume. But unfortunately, I don't dress up hardly ever anymore for Halloween.
I was going to say, I now challenge you sometime in the middle of March. I want you to come in here in an outfit that makes no sense.
Done.
And just please.
Well, I don't know if I won't give away the gag because it's not out on social media yet, but do you remember when you messaged me just a few weeks ago and you said, Toby, don't ask any questions, just buy this costume?
That's right.
And I'm like, Blake, you really think I'm going to ask you questions before you tell me to buy a costume and put it on? All right, done.
It's true. It's scary easy to get Toby to do wild things with Amazon links.
Yeah, so happy belated Halloween to all of our church tech friends who, I don't know what they called themselves when they dressed up in all black on Halloween.
A church tech. Well, speaking of someone who definitely knows about dressing up in all black, the man who is championing the cause of church at Ross Video, business development manager for the church space at Ross Video. He said he just didn't like his titles, and I don't like pronouncing them. Jeremy Bagwell. Jeremy, welcome to the show. Hey. What's your actual title, and what are you going to dress up for Halloween this year?
So you got really close to my title. I appreciate you trying. It's good effort.
That's Blake's constant.
Yes.
He tries.
Yeah, I like to say I champion the cause of church. That's the simple answer. But technically, business development manager for our worship production market. So I am the church guy at Ross, and so I get to have all these cool conversations about church production, live event production, inside of church, workflow, technology, all that kind of stuff. So I do a lot of those conversations inside Ross Video to help our organization understand what church production is, as well as have a lot of conversations with like this one and with our end users and people who are serving in churches and making things happen. So you asked another question, but I can't remember because.
Oh, what do you, when you dress in all black for Halloween, what do you say you're dressed up as?
Are you going to dress up for Halloween this year, which is now in the past retroactively, but we are recording today on Halloween?
Yeah. So, I mean, like an hour from now, I go pick up pizza and I go over to a friend's house. We do the thing. I'm not going to dress up, but I'm just going to sit around a fire and hang out with my friends and let my kids wander around a neighborhood that they don't live in. So, yeah.
Oh, I live in a destination neighborhood in Nashville because it's all these townhouses connected.
Yep.
It is so many children. My wife loves giving out the candy, but dude, when we try to like guess what they are, we have no idea anymore.
Yeah.
She was like, "Oh, are you in Harry Potter?" And they were like, "We're from the Umbrella Academy." It was like they might as well have been like, "You millennial."
My kids have, the entire time we've lived in our home, my kids have gone to other neighborhoods because all of our lots are at least an acre. So just the walking time.
Soft flex.
Yeah. Well,
just the time it takes to walk from door to door.
I don't live in a neighborhood.
Where do you live, Jeremy?
We have a little piece of property that we live on. So that's why we have to go bomb into our friend's neighborhood and trick or treat.
Do you think Jeremy lives in a bunker in the middle of nowhere or something?
It's possible. He seems like the crazy guy.
You wish you would do that? You live in you see those, right? Like on Facebook where it'll be like, this old time nuclear war bunker now turned into a house.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I could do that. I could live. Yeah. I like simple life and I don't like neighborhood HOAs. That's a whole different conversation. So that's why I don't live in a neighborhood.
HOA doesn't do diddly crap. And I can't say much more than that on this podcast.
And Jeremy, do you currently own a tractor?
I own a tractor. Yep.
Did you just pull that out of your butt?
I just assumed the way he was talking about, he must be a country boy.
I live in some country land. Yes. But I'm 45 minutes outside of Atlanta, but a lot of people say it's the sticks. But yeah.
Interesting. All right. Yeah. Well, let's see if he can lie to us. Number 1, I love pizza. Number 2, I hate seafood. Number 3, I played trumpet in middle school. Number 4, I've spent 3 consecutive weeks backpacking. Number 5, I've been to 28 national parks.
I'm choosing that one. That's the lie. Okay, give me the next one. I've already locked in my vote.
Number 6, I have moved over 10 times. It's 10 years of marriage.
I'm trying to figure out why you just were so confident.
Can you see the outline there, Jeremy?
Yes.
You wrote down what your life was.
Now to our listeners who think we all just had a stroke.
Listen, I don't know this game. I was just filling out information to Blake. Blake did not tell me, don't tell us, because I kind of thought he was the host and you were the guy that were going to do all the gag work and not see the outline. So you know what?
So
I'm glad you read my list before you copied and pasted into your outline. Anyway.
I am so mad right now because I'm really behind. I could have known that and I would have lied about the lie, but I've been so busy. Like I didn't have time. I was just copy pasting, moving fast.
Okay, I need to explain to the listeners real quick. Obviously, most of us get the concept of the 5 truths and a lie. You write down 6 things, one of which is untrue, and then Blake and I read them, and then we try and guess. But, Jeremy Bagwell put in parentheses next to I've been to 28 national parks, the word lie. Like he couldn't remember which one wasn't true.
Okay. No. Back up. We come from a live event world, right?
Yep.
We come from where we work with producers and we make really cool things and moments happen on stage, right? So if you were coordinating a podcast and you were like, hey, we want to do this, and I've never seen your podcast visually, I would just assume that Blake is the producer person who needs all the information because they're going to make a really great moment out of this.
Here's the thing. Jeremy's not wrong. Like I am the producer and a co-host. I get it. I've had multiple people ask me.
So is this Blake's fault then?
Well, it's totally my fault because I could have erased it and pretended and benefited if I just wasn't so freaking busy this week. I just copy pasted. Normally I try to read and guess ahead of time.
I just assumed. Yeah, sorry. That's my bad.
What if he is just playing dumb on this whole thing and like that's not actually the lie? He's just messing with us.
I am not that savvy. Bro.
Give it 4 months.
Give me way too much credit.
Give it 4 months from now, and I'm going to coordinate with the guest. And I'm going to do this again, and then I'm going to guess the lie.
Okay, Blake, what's your guess?
Yeah,
I guess.
I already locked in mine.
No, I'm not counting this.
You have to.
No, you got in. I feel like mine is pretty strategic. So anyway, we've been to 25 national parks over the last 3 years.
That's what you're always going for,
I'm
Blake?
Always going for numbers. You just have to put one digit off.
Okay, Blake, what are you locking in?
Yeah.
No, I'm not
the
counting
rules of the
this.
game. You gotta. Nope, too late. Sorry, you have to count it.
This doesn't count. Yeah.
I'm gonna accept this.
My bad for misunderstanding the game. Apparently, I know the game. I just didn't know who the game was for. There we go.
Again, producer, I get it. Like, I get it. Let's move right to our questions here.
Well, let's
move it on.
I wanted to ask a couple of questions about, obviously, you love the outdoors. So 25 national parks and 3 consecutive weeks of backpacking. Where were you?
Yeah. So, I was in the mountains of North Carolina. So, the kind of southern side of the Appalachians and particularly the Black Mountains, which is like Asheville and north. So my undergrad is in outdoor education. And then for our senior project, we had to we did a backpacking trip. We're like, hey, here's where you get dropped off. Here's where you get picked up. See you 3 weeks from now. There's two food drops along the way. And that was it. So it was really fun. Had a blast.
Did you survive?
Clearly I survived.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Blake, I feel like we should try this with you. Like, give you a backpack. It's kind of like that episode of The Office where they drop Michael Scott in the wilderness.
Dude, hand on the Bible. In my group thread with my devotional guys from high school, like we had a Devo group. We're hanging out again this coming Saturday. And someone literally said, let's take a hike in this woods. I know it'll be really great. We can do it at dark even. And I said, do you not watch any shows? This is how people die. Jeremy, have you seen the overlay of the map of people that go missing mysteriously in the national park system? Because they match up exactly.
No.
Have you ever almost died in a national park?
I have not, because I'm trying to pride myself in keeping ourselves safe. So yeah.
And I'm not an expert on this subject. Maybe you can correct me, Jeremy, but I would assume most of those people it's because they got lost. They didn't know where they were.
Most of those people are because they're, I don't know if I can say it on.
Sure you can.
The volume of people that go to national parks is incredible. So anytime you overlay that amount of mass humanity, there are people who have a certain level of intellect as part of that mass. And so, yes, they're not thinking it all the way through. Let's say that.
See, Blake, the only reason that it doesn't happen in amusement parks is because they're fences. You can't get lost. You're in the fence.
I did see something that was like, I'm not saying we start, hurting people to reduce the population. I am saying we just stop putting the warning signs on things and see what happens.
Oh, So we went to Joshua Tree. My wife and I did a couple of weeks ago, out in California, and literally you walk onto the national park, guard shack thing, and the sign says "Don't die today" in big bold letters. It says "Don't die today," and we took a picture of it. And then under there was like a bottles of water and stuff like that, like explaining how to hydrate and all that stuff. And I'm like, see. If you got to be told that, I'm not sure you should be here,
That's the text that Blake sends me every morning. I wake up and a text from like, "Don't die today, Toby."
Well, I don't know who I would use to replace you. Oh my gosh.
And so you guys have moved 10 times in 17 years of marriage. How does your wife feel about that?
It was a mutual agreement, all the times. So yeah.
And are you satisfied with where you are now? Are you going to be there for a while?
We have been here for a while. We've been here for about 5.5 years, but we lived in a camper for 5 months while our home was being completely renovated after 2 years of living here. So it's almost like we moved out and moved back in. So actually probably, that's one more time technically. It's stupid. We make some crazy decisions with our living situation, but we're locked in now. We're good to go.
I have a feeling his wife had a conversation that said we are now locked in now. If you want to be good to go, or you can be good and going.
You can have a tractor, but we're not moving again.
That's very true. That's very true. Most of them were like even just close by, like hopping like just around town. So it was the weird from recession all the way through to now. So there's a lot of real estate opportunities, and you just it was just a good opportunity for things, and I like to make money sometimes.
Hey, somebody's got to do it.
That's right.
So Jeremy, give us some of your tech background. Everybody knows you as the Ross guy. What's your background in church production that has given you all this wisdom throughout the years? And is Ross your now last name? Is it Jeremy Ross?
I wish it was. That would be great, wouldn't it? No, my last name is not Jeremy Ross, but so my tech background started when I was in high school, which I'm kind of dating myself now. So that was like 19. I graduated high school in 99. So Toby, you and I are probably close.
97.
Oh, okay. There you go. See,
I was in kindergarten then, guys. That is,
oh gosh.
That's why you know nothing about nothing, Blake.
So yes, in high school, me and my brother and our best friend got together. We started a band. This is when like traditional like hymn singing church became like the hip, cool, like praise worship tune church. So I started playing guitar. My brother played drums. Our friend played bass, and we started playing through PA systems that were crap. And I would like deal with them at front of house, play my guitar, make sure it's good, then run back to the stage, and then we'd do worship. And you get the image. It was pews, red carpet, Yamaha speakers on stands, and some type of analog console with one wedge.
Yeah.
So
I don't miss those days.
I know it was rough. So luckily we were at a church that was transitioning like our whole production to more modern relevant music and stuff. So we learned how to wear in-ears over the span of like 5 years. We learned how to play our instruments.
Step one.
So right, exactly. And so during that time, we learned a lot about like we'd take the PA system down. We go to do like these I don't know, in our area, they're like fifth quarters or like overtime events. Like the church would have student ministry would have an event at the church after football games. So we go to like play music for other churches and then reset the PA system up on Sunday morning for church. So without our pastors knowing about it, just stuff like that. So
I did that exact kind of thing too.
Yeah. So
don't tell pastor.
Hey, listen, this is a level of hustle that you young guys don't know, bro. It's a real deal. So, yeah,
that is intense. I can't even fathom
I was
pulling
like,
that caper off.
I couldn't figure out how a power amp worked for a while. I was like, wait, why am I not getting any signal out of this speaker? Like,
because it was passive.
Yeah. You learn a lot. So, yeah.
And you ended up on staff at a couple big churches in Atlanta area, right?
I did. Yeah, I did. So from there, fast forward after I got my degree and kind of fumbled around some other things as we all do in our 20s. I landed at a full-time church being a student pastor, which I realized I hated at that point.
You guys have that in common.
I know. You and I are living very similar lives so far.
That's weird. Okay. I only see half of you in my video screen, by the way. So yeah, there you are. So, anyway, so I realized I hate weekly sermon prep. Like, I'm probably not a good Bible teacher. But student ministry is awesome because I love the environment, love how we do things from a production standpoint. I realized that as I was like using the Hog back in the day, so the lighting console for those of you who don't, and like learning how to build scenes with like 4 intelligent lights, moving lights that were like $20,000 a piece, which was like asinine for us back then. So I was like, I just could spend a whole day doing this, and then I have to teach these kids something on Wednesday night. And it was like 150 kids showing up. So I was like, hey, I had an intern. I was like, hey, how about you become a student pastor? I'll do production. We're going to pitch this to our senior pastor. And we did, and it worked. So I don't know what that says. Clearly, I was not great at being a student pastor. So, so I just started doing production at this small church, and then moved from there to 12 Stone Church, was a mega church here in town, Atlanta. And then from there, North Point Community Church, which is a big, large church.
Yep.
Two on the opposite side of town. So yeah, I lived kind of in between the two. So I never had to move, which is a blessing as well. So
he'll move for other reasons. He'll move at the drop of a hat.
Exactly.
So Jeremy, we visit tons of churches, and obviously there's a lot of video solutions, but when you get a church of, let's say, like 2,000 people and up, we see almost like 80 to 90% like Ross gear is their kind of the heart of their system. Do you feel like Ross has really hit the church market right with some great solutions, or are you just really good at your job and so churches love to use Ross stuff?
I wish I could say I'm really good at my job, but most of those were systems that were installed before I was ever doing what I do now. And so, because I've only been doing this for Ross for 3 years now, Ross has a really unique, let me back up. Ross is really unique in its position from a price point and functionality standpoint. So obviously we know Blackmagic is very popular on the low end of the pricing of things. So there's a ton of churches that have Blackmagic video systems out there, from cameras, switchers, routers. The next step from there is most likely Ross, because of the price point and the feature set that Ross can provide. And Ross is fairly newer onto the broadcast market. So Ross has been around for 30 something years, where Panasonic, Sony, Grass Valley has been around for a lot longer than that. And so Ross has been able to find like where that market gap is from a price point standpoint, and really fill that, particularly when the Carbonite, I don't know the history of it all, but particularly when the Carbonite switcher came on, which was probably around 7 years ago-ish. There's been a lot of different iterations of it. So that really filled a void between like these massive 40 by 40 production switchers to this 20 inputs, 20 by 10 production switchers. And so that makes a big difference from a cost standpoint. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, totally.
That's just my
I know when we were at Willow Creek, we were purchasing gear from like probably 25 years as far as, stuff that they had just purchased to all the way, 25 years ago. And I forget the exact model of the gigantic Ross switcher from 25 years ago, but I kept threatening to put it in the back of your car. And you were like, nope, don't give me that thing.
Nope. Yeah. It's probably the Ross Synergy, maybe.
Yep. I think that's exactly what it was.
Yeah. So, it's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing when you think about like our industry, and like, if you take these, like, just in the processing power and how much the footprint has shrunk, when you think about like, it's just, it's kind of unbelievable.
As you, have conversations with churches all day, every day, what do you see as some of the common misconceptions that churches have around their video needs? Like, what are some of the things you're having to explain? No, let's think about it this way.
Oh, Oh, there's a lot of those. I think common misconception is more cameras, more better. I don't think that's true. I think you actually can get away with fewer cameras than you think you need. And so that's number one. Number two is I think there's a common misconception that like your video infrastructure and your systems, like your video routers, your video switchers, make your creativity and create creativity. And hey, we're going to be our video system will look better if we have this. Well, that's not true either, because we're not changing any color. And then a lot of people buy cameras to make their systems look better when they really need to focus on lighting, which I think you guys have probably talked about with somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then last thing that I'm particularly a big fan of is your user experience matters a lot. Now, my pet peeve is we get this right in audio all the time. So like hands on faders, where macros buttons are on your consoles, like how you get to EQ and gate and compressor on your audio console matters a lot, right? You want to be able to get to the right things, the right time, and not miss things or whatever. We don't put that level of importance on video switcher panels and control surfaces as much as we should. And I think the volunteer experience and the user experience of a video switcher matters much more than we give it credit. So that's my pet peeve. But yeah.
I think there's, you're harping on it that no matter what the discipline, audio, video, lighting, like we've got to understand what is actually the cause of the problem. So you're talking about how much lighting matters to the end product of your video. Just, there are different things in audio that we automatically think, oh, I need a new PA. No, you just need your guitarist to turn down his amp, simple things. Do you get just a lot of misunderstanding as churches, especially with Ross with like switchers? Are they saying things like, "Oh, great, we'll get this new switcher and our videos look better," and you're like, "No, let's start at the beginning."
Well, I think where the breakdown is the communication of that to the lead pastor or the person that's the group is spending the money. It's like making sure they understand, like I've been talking to a church last week that was like, hey, this is an infrastructure project. It's just switching and routing. And what you see on Sunday is not going to change. But this is what I say. The words you need to use are, but I am not going to have a heart attack because things are going to work easier, more smoothly. We'll be able to manage our volunteers better. Be less panicked, those type of things. So that's like the language and understanding when you talk about like getting video infrastructure, control services, user experiences set up correctly. It's like, oh, those are the words. And so I think because our pastors like seeing things, it's just expected like it's going to look better. But reality is that's the infrastructure, switchers and routers and things don't make it just look better inherently. So
it almost sounds like insurance. Like an insurance, you might not see the benefit, but you're glad it's there.
Right.
This isn't, the new shiny car. It's the insurance on the car. You're going to ensure we don't have a mess up or a flub and mess up be a distraction.
Right. And I think it's just I like to tell people all the time, it's like, hey, my job is really, I want you to have a better Sunday. I want the production team to have a better Sunday. I want the production managers to have a better Sunday, because like if we are at our best, if we are able to, like the old Maxwell quote, like walk slowly through the room, we're able to like look volunteers in the eyes, we're able to like say people's names because we're not stressed out about a video needing to be added to ProPresenter, or not worrying about a video system or a switcher crashing or failing, or a camera that's not working properly. Like if we're not worrying about that stuff, we can be better leaders, we can be better managers, we can have a better Sunday. So getting the right systems in place help you have a better Sunday. So that's really what I'm passionate about.
And do you have conversations with churches where they're, this actually does happen, where churches want to spend too much money on some fancy toys and they want the big fancy switcher because that's what they see in other environments, but you have to walk them through, like, do you have a team that knows how to use this properly? And almost advise them on smaller solutions?
No, that is actually if that happens, call me. But that doesn't happen as much. I don't know if that has happened yet. I'm all about like making sure people have the right solutions and not overspending. But what I see is people don't invest in the right gear because there's other things that get in the way, like lighting systems and audio consoles and PA. I just look at it as a balance. Like, hey, are we spending the right amount of money in all three of those areas, or are we like out of whack in some place? Because like, hey, if we can cut 5 lights and buy a better switcher that's going to have a better volunteer experience, well, let's take that all day long. And let's instead of having some pretty lights, let's just have really good key light and a couple of light fills and a couple of colors, get us the right video experience. But the same is true about audio consoles. Like, hey, well, maybe we need the right audio console. So it's like whenever you're dealing with like budget stuff, it's always just a balance of like making sure that you're spending the adequate amount of money in each area, not overspending in a certain area. So that's more of the conversation. It's less about like, hey, you don't need all those things on a video switcher. It's more about like, hey, well, tell me about your lighting system. Tell me about your audio system. Cool. And do you have the right stuff for the right volunteer experience you're trying to create?
When you're talking about, go ahead.
I will say one more thing. I do try to talk people out of going to UHD or 4K, because there's a lot of times UHD and 4K does not matter. I mean, it's 4 times the bandwidth going through a piece of copper. It's 4 times going out to the web. It's 4 times people downloading it. So yes, we see 4K TVs, UHD TVs in Best Buy, but the reality is it's difficult to manage. It costs a lot, just even from a cabling and infrastructure standpoint. So maybe it's not the best thing to try to get. I think HD TV, like 1920 by 1080p, is going to be around for the next 15 years. Your new gear you buy today will survive through the next iteration of whatever UHD is, or the whatever 8K is. So it's like, hey, I don't know. I question the need sometimes to do 4K right now.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a lot of just assumption? Oh, we need to go to 4K, and you're having to educate, especially when you don't have budget to do everything at that level.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's more pixels. It's not a better picture. So, it can be a better picture, but remember, it's just more data and more pixels, which means if you're viewing it closer, you'll see less pixelization, but you get further back and it's going to look just like a 1920 by 1080 image. So the other conversation will be HDR, which is a color space, not a resolution. So HDR, which is high dynamic range, which we all learned from our phones because we have a HDR button. Or we did. I think now that button, it just is all HDR now. Anyway, HDR is a color space that does not require any more bandwidth through a piece of cable. It's just flagging of the data of that video signal. So that's a much 1080 HDR is a much better picture than 4K. 4K HDR is just obviously HDR with more pixels, but you can accomplish a really great picture using HDR 1080. Does that make sense?
Not to
that may
us.
Have gotten
not to us. It's definitely
our listeners are eating this up right now because they're like, oh, finally the information I was asking. Blake, sometimes I call Jeremy with questions on like very exotic ROS gear because I'm like, what the heck is this? And then he'll try and explain it to me. And I like, what were you just doing in your head right now? Like playing Tetris or?
I was imagining how I was going to go. I wasn't going to own up to it. I was just gonna be like, wow, so we don't need 4K, but let's talk about where some churches should not skimp on their video systems.
Yeah,
I breeze right past it.
Well, I love that Ross is representing, like, their representative actually knows everything about everything that he's talking about. It's
well, what does that say then? That Church Gear's representatives don't know anything.
Oh, we have the people here. We're not Church Gear's representatives, Blake. we're the doofuses.
Okay, well,
we employ a lot of very smart technical people here at Church Gear, but you and I are not them.
okay. Well,
I'll send you guys a Wikipedia article for your homework.
Please don't.
You have to read it. So HDR is very important. Yeah, everybody should just Google HDR, read about it. There's a couple of different standards, which all of the TVs and most camera manufacturers support. So it's on, this is 2 words. It's on the acquisition side, which is cameras, and then display side. So that's where it matters most. So you got to acquire it in HDR, and you got to be able to display it in HDR. All the signal processing switches, routers, they just hand the signal off. So acquisition and display matters. Anyway, let's go, Blake. Producer time.
I honestly love this conversation because I feel like, part of our heart is to help churches be good stewards of the resources. And I know we've had conversations with like audio guys that say, lots of people think they need immersive audio, but it's a lot of money you're putting out there and you're getting very little return. And so, for churches to think critically about, do we need to go 4K? Do we need to spend the extra, however much that is going to cost you when, this is great advice. Like, there are less expensive options that will be top of the line for the next 10 to 15 years.
Yep. And there's little things like little tricks, like if you're building a new building or even doing a pretty sizable retrofit renovation, like putting fiber in instead of copper, because fiber can carry a 1080 signal or a UHD 4K signal. If you put copper SDI in, then you have to buy either the HD or 1080 copper or the UHD or 4K copper. So then you're now buying an already probably budget constrained project. You're wanting to buy UHD to be UHD ready. Well, the reality is you probably should just buy fiber because it's going to be able to carry either one of those signals, and it's about the same cost as copper. So it's just those things about figuring out like, okay, what's the best kind of bang for our buck if we really want to think 4K 15 years from now.
Yeah.
The reality is we're going to do another renovation cycle and another building before then. Anyway.
Okay. I think I'm starting to get this theme. Like, you don't always need the best of the best. Good enough will get by. It's kind of like when Shelly was looking at husbands. She was like, he's not the best of the best, but it'll get by.
That's cute, Blake. Let's ask both of our wives.
Let's have them come on and do like the intro one time. That would actually be hilarious.
That would be funny. And we also need to get both of our dads on sometime.
I think that would be fun.
That'd be amazing. So Jeremy, when you're looking at a video system like holistically from A to Z, where are some of the places you advise churches make sure you don't skimp on these things?
In video systems, particularly infrastructure, 2 things. I was just with a church on Friday, my cousin's church out in San Francisco. They're like renovating a building. And I told him, I was like, hey, put cable or put copper or put like a cable path in more places than you think you ever need them, because you're going to want to like, oh, we need to put a projector in this room, or we need to add this or add that. Like, you only get one chance to really put cables where you want to. And so even though it feels like a lot now, focus on that. So number 1. Number 2 is you really should be thinking about if your auditorium sits 1,000 people or more. That's kind of like my line in the sand between your, everybody kind of has these like small, medium, large mega church things. But for me, it's really 2 types of churches. There's less than 1,000 seats in your auditorium, and then there's more than 1,000 seats. Because like the people size of your church, does that matter? That same 1,000-person auditorium, you could run 6 services on a Sunday, and now you're a 6,000-person church, right? So in 1,000 seats, you're going to do IMAG, right? You're probably going to have projector screens. You're probably going to be running cameras on the sides. That's the same as the 2,500 seat room I did at North Point. So it's like from a complexity standpoint, it's actually the same. It's the same. It just scales up a little bit more as you get larger in your seat size. So that's 1,000 seats for me is like the line, like, okay, I can tell you, here's kind of what your system needs to look like if it's 1,000 or more or 1,000 or less. So if you're 1,000 or more seats in your auditorium, you're probably doing IMAG. You probably need to think about a great switcher that has a good volunteer user experience that does like editable macros and things like that, which will be in like the broadcast level switchers. which is not what black magic is, in my opinion. There's a lot of other people that have different opinions, but that's just my opinion. The second thing is dealing with audio inside your video system is really, really important. So a lot of people will, how do you get audio married with video to your encoder, to your hallways? How do you get it to the nursing mother's room? How do you get it to pastor's office? So how do you get those two signals together and then to a TV or a projector or a streaming encoder or Resi encoder, whatever you want to use? So I would say find a router that can handle audio embedding and de-embedding. So that's like really, really important in my opinion, in trying to stay digital audio all the way through and minimize how many analog to digital, digital to analog conversions has to happen in order to embed and de-embed video. So there's a test. What did you know of all I just said?
You know, Jeremy, there was a time in the Pay series where some dummy, I want to even, maybe I'm going to go harder. Some idiot on TikTok goes, you know, if you just build your room the right, shape, you don't even need speakers or lights or electricity. And then I hear you talk and I'm like, dear heavens, I've got to put in, fiber and copper, and I got to put it in the walls, and, I need it even where I don't think I need it, just like an escape route. Like I just need as many as possible. Man, this is complex, Toby.
I know. Yeah. That's why you and I are not tech guys.
Clearly.
Well, that's just, like I said, it all comes back to what are you trying to accomplish? And if you...
Wow.
Quiet, Siri.
So when I said this dummy, the computer, hang on, this is telling us a lot right now. The computer responded to this dummy. So Toby, do you abuse Siri in the confines of your home or something?
I get frustrated sometimes when I don't understand what Jeremy Bagwell's talking about in video production world.
Poor Siri, taking shots. Okay, sorry, Jeremy. We're having a lot of buddy troubles in front of you.
Yeah, that's fine. But depending on what you're trying to accomplish, I just most churches who we collectively interact with is going to have some type of music component, some kind of teaching component. And reality is, in this digital age, that component and those things, that experience also then lives on the interwebs, as one would say. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to live on social media. It's going to live online. And so we need to do some type of recording, some type of streaming. So understanding what's our level and how we want to make that happen is important, no matter what size church you are. So do you want to edit some of that stuff later, and repost it on social? Do you want to edit record the camera ISOs? And so you can then, if somebody messed up, you can fix those in post and repost. There's a lot of questions that hey, what do you want to do? And you just got to have the infrastructure and gear to support that.
Okay, so since Blake and I are such dummies and we don't understand all these...
You're not dummies, guys.
We're just beautiful faces.
He is so much nicer than Rusty Anderson. I mean, just such a nice guy.
Jeremy, give us some of your just predictions on what's going to be different about video in 10, 20 years. What are some of the things you think are coming on the horizon? We won't hold you to them in 20 years when we come back to this episode, but...
It's easy. I mean, cameras are being in our hands. The camera that's on our phones are going to get better and better and better and better. There might be a day where I'm sticking an iPhone on a tripod, or something like that. I think there's always going to be, in the live event space, there's always going to need to be a place to be flexible and pivot. And so AI is going to be interesting, but also have some hurdles, because you need to be able to in the moment. So Siri may not understand exactly where the pastor is going, but we can with our brains, so it'll be interesting to see if AI comes in play. I think that's really camera technology is going to be changing a lot. And then I just don't know if more pixels is more better. Mm-hmm. So even if we go into 4K, 8K and on past that, it's we only have a certain infrastructure. Think about our internet pipes to our house. Think about bandwidth to our house. I don't know, somebody way smarter than me and you guys probably understand this. See? but like, I don't even know, like in North America, like in the United States, do we have the like internet bandwidth to serve 8K video to our homes over the internet?
This is probably a good question. Yeah. Like when does the tech impede the mission actually?
Right. It's like, I don't think we do. So it's like, man, I don't, and then talk about it like being all wireless on our phone. And so it's like, okay, so I don't know. There's just so many questions to me. It's like, okay, at some point we just got to cut it off and be like, hey, that's enough pixels. That's why I like HDR, because it just is the color space. It's not pixels. And it makes it look better. So
I think it's kind of like,
does that answer your question?
Yeah. Like when digital audio kept doubling the bit rate, and eventually the human ear can't tell the difference. So I wonder, same thing with video, like at some point your eyes cannot tell the difference.
Yeah. And I think we deal with compressed video. This is the other thing that a lot of people don't understand. Like when you watch video, any streaming platform that's not like downloaded to your computer or to your TV and played out, you're watching some type of compression, which means it is manipulating and there's artifacts in that video signal. So now compression codecs have gotten a lot better and they're a lot more sophisticated, less artifacting. But ultimately, you're not going to get a pure video signal. And because we've seen compressed video, remember y'all, like you're not. Me and Toby remember when the internet was invented.
Hang on. I still remember in 6th grade figuring out what a computer was because I went to an old school district. So I remember having to write a paper, and in 6th grade I was able to Google something instead of look it up in a book. And I was like, this is the amazing future I've been waiting for.
Wait, I just remember. Anyway, I won't digress. But I remember when like ESPN first started streaming video, and we were like, this looks terrible. But guess what I did? I watched it on my computer, on my crappy college dorm room internet, and I think we've just gotten used to it. And it's like, okay, we're okay with it. Now, as long as the audio sounds good, we're very much okay with crappy video or like highly compressed. So, I don't think we have that broadcast pure uncompressed video signal quality standard like we used to.
It's funny you say that about, will we be using iPhones in the future, kind of offhandedly. Toby, you didn't know this. I became a photographer this weekend. I got the new iPhone 15 because it was basically free with these dumb upgrades. I was like, great, sure. Well, I went to the forest for a little fall trip, and man, the action mode on the iPhone 15, it is unreal. It is like your phone is on a Ronin without being on a Ronin. Like it self-stabilizes.
I do not need to hear that.
Why?
Let me pretend I didn't hear that because I want one really bad. I have an iPhone.
Who are you
12.
with? I'm serious. You can almost get it free anywhere if you just trade in your phone. I know. It's amazing.
I know it's complicated, but yes, I understand.
You should seriously get on Instagram after this and look up action mode examples. They're really dope.
Okay. Okay.
What's funny is, it used to be you'd just be a shaky cam and it'd be kind of a disaster. Speaking of disasters, tell us a time.
That segue was a disaster.
It's only when you point it out, Toby. No one thinks about it that deeply until you say it. All right. Tell us a time when, all the tech went wrong and how you recovered it. Poor Jeremy's like, this whole episode's been a disaster. These two idiots don't know what I'm saying.
I was like, remember that time you asked for 5 truths and a lie?
Listen, you were blessed by being the first one to do it. If that'd been like the second time, that'd have been like, this sucks. First time, that was hilarious.
Man, I have a lot of them. Production disasters. I'm trying to think like I think I've told, maybe it's on Instagram, but I told you guys maybe, I don't know. Have we talked about like when I had a fire inside our lighting rig? Have I talked about that?
I don't think so.
Did you survive that one?
Barely. I had a good team. But this is like right before, so we had a 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock service, and we had a massive like triangle lighting rig. So I think like 30 foot by 20 foot wide stage. So massive stage with massive lighting rig. And between the 9 and 11, so probably 9:20ish, 10:20ish. I was just hanging out in the control room, like, sweet, 9 o'clock happened. The campuses have their teaching captured. It's great. They'll run that for the rest of the day, which kind of relieves the pressure of what I was dealing with that day. And then somebody ran in and is like, Jeremy, there's a like fire on stage. And I was like, oh, yeah. And so then we run up to me to see what's going on. I have a lighting director and engineer on staff. And so we all kind of got to stage. And sure enough, there's like a flame. There's probably a 2-foot flame, like up, like 30 feet up in the air off the lighting grid, like just going. And I was like, oh, the doors are open to the service. People are walking in for the 11 o'clock service. I'm like, sitting there. So it's all in chain mutter. So we brought it down. Our stage manager, Bruce, he's amazing. He went and got the fire extinguisher and we sprayed it. We killed all the breakers. But apparently these really fancy, L630 power connectors, they arc when the screws are not tight on the copper. And so obviously our subs, that may be like a first, second, third week of subs being flown in the air. So we were moving a lot of air. And sure enough, that arced, melted the connector. The connector was gaff taped to another connector because it was like coupled together. And so then the gaff tape is what actually caught fire. So we lowered it all down. We got it back up and we ran without that. We ran without any downlight for the 11 o'clock service. So, yeah.
And that's the
Disaster.
first week you realized just how important lighting is to your video.
Correct.
And that was the second week that Jeremy said, I'm going to leave the church.
Yeah. I think the next week, the electrician came in and checked all of our connectors to our lighting fixtures. So, yeah, that was a good lesson to learn.
Well, Jeremy, other than having an electrician come in to check things, what would be a tech takeaway that you would give our audience of tech directors to make their Sundays better?
I always like to say, keep things simple and work on the things that matter every week. So, meaning the thing, like what I wish I could have done more of is communicate better to my volunteer team. Instead of like sweating some stuff about some of the technical setup or I was like sometimes over focused on the minute detail that actually didn't really matter. So spend time during the week, be really prepared, over communicate to your team on Thursdays or Fridays or whatever your rhythm is for getting prepped for the Sunday service. That would be my tech leadership takeaway is, over communicate so that they have, I'll say it this way. If you can focus on creating an experience from your 6 a.m. call time through 9 a.m. Sunday morning, so whatever that time is from when we arrive to when people start walking in a room, if as a tech director, you can create a really fantastic experience, then the 9 a.m. experience is going to be amazing. So focus, we design experiences every day, right? We design experiences for that worship service. We'll take that same intentionality and put it for what you're doing from when they show up to when your volunteers show up to when people start walking into your room for the experience you're executing. And then that will help you have a better Sunday.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Jeremy, what do you want to plug, other than all those electrical holes so that they don't get the fires, the little, what was it? The screw?
Fires.
Yeah. The fires.
Yeah. I'm like, I can't remember whatever that screw. Anyway, somebody will correct us. So what do I want to plug? I'm really bad at plugging because I hate this part, but I will say I'm a big fanboy of the way we do routing systems and video routing systems. So not only video systems, but our Ultrix video router is an audio and video matrix. So brings MADI audio in or audio on your SDI streams and then can embed and de-embed that. And y'all can Wikipedia that word later, embed and de-embed. So I really like the Ultrix. I like what we're doing inside of it. You can put a video switcher inside of it now. You can buy some multi-viewer licenses. So it's a really, really great video signal processing box that allows you to do a lot of really awesome things. So Big fan of it. And yeah, that's what I would plug.
And I can confirm that most of the churches I've visited over the last 6 months, I'm seeing Ultrix sitting in their video suites. So you must be doing something right.
Yeah, it's our product teams, man. It's easy to really talk about products when the products are really great. So that's one thing to always remember is like, yeah, our guys make some great products. I just get to talk about them. So.
Same, Jeremy, same. Although you know much more about yours than we do about ours.
And if any churches still have a synergy out there, call Jeremy. He wants to help you get
actually call you. Call you.
Do we still
call you and then you can call me? Yeah, right.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Well, man, we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
So Blake, after Sunday service this week, I sent Josh, our front of house tech, a text, and I said, your mix was deliciously inappropriate this week. That is all.
How did he reply to that?
He just loved it. You know, he gave the little love icon. So I feel like so often our listeners think that exact same thing about the Church Gear podcast episodes.
Deliciously inappropriate. I think that's actually a great
Or maybe it was
description.
Inappropriately delicious. Because, I mean, what I was trying to say is the mix was so amazing.
Well, what would be very appropriate is to share this episode. Tag a friend, text it to a friend, whatever you got to do. And also, we're just a little personal ask here. We're really struggling to get some reviews on Facebook and Google, so throw those our way and I won't get fired because we're at like 19 and I need 30 by the end of the year. Toby's going to get pretty mad at me.
And if you reference the words inappropriately delicious, that would be super helpful.
Here's a quick word from one of our sponsors.
Hi, this is Brian with 60 seconds of Prime Dialogue. It seems resumes are the necessary evil first step in trying to land your dream job. You might feel there are 100 decisions that need to be made to create the perfect resume. Let me focus you. What is the purpose of a resume? A resume has one job: to get someone to want to meet you. That's it. If you get a job, what is it that will either get you promoted or fired? Your performance. How good or not good you are. It really won't matter how long you've done it or where you've done it or when you have done it. It's all about how you perform. If that is true, then our resume should reflect our performance, not just our work history. Many people are taught to create a historical resume, a list of what all we've done and what dates we did it. You need a resume that boasts of your performance, one that shows how amazing you really are and will be sure to get that prospective company to want to meet you. Interested? I invite you to check out primedialogue.com.